And thank you for returning to Fireside Chats after a week's break while I've just tried to rejig what we're doing. What we're going to do over the summer is take the subjects that we have on Sunday mornings. Those Sunday mornings we're working through Hebrews 11, and they're sometimes called the heroes of faith, and we've reached Abraham. So each week what I plan to do is to take some broader subjects from those texts. After all, on Sunday, a very limited amount of time to deal with those texts, and there are things that come out of it. And so I'm going to pursue those further each week. And what I'll also do is produce a set of notes. Don't think anything really big and special here, but just notes on what the subjects are. If you want to send me a message, I can send you a copy of that. They just deal with application, questions, Bible references, so that we have a greater idea of what the Hebrews text actually means. So on Sunday we were in Hebrews chapter 11, verses 8 to 10, and that reminds us, just let me summarize some of what it says, that by faith Abraham, when he was called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. You can find the rest of it, verses 9 and 10, in the Bible. So what we have here is that Abraham is called to leave, and he goes, not knowing where he's going. And of course, the subsequent verses tell us that actually it wasn't quite what he was expecting, I imagine. And so I just want to talk about what you might call blind faith this morning, the sort of faith that Abraham was called to exercise. God told him to leave everything that was familiar behind him. And he did give him a series of promises, big promises, about what was going to happen if he obeyed. There was the big picture of Abraham becoming a father, Abraham becoming a great nation, his people, and then being a blessing to the whole world. Those promises you can read in Genesis chapter 12 and the opening verses of that chapter. But what is significant is that God did not fill in the details, the sort of things we would like to know. Oh yeah, there's going to happen something in the future, but what about now? And he wasn't told, for instance, that he could spend the rest of his life living as a nomad in a tent. He wasn't told that he would have no earthly security in terms of property. He left a city and a stable, I guess, income and everything around him, and he ends up with nothing. Well, not nothing, he was very rich, but he had no earthly security. He wasn't told the length of time it would take for these promises to begin to be fulfilled. It was 25 years before the son that was promised was born. And of course, in that period, what he wasn't told is that sometimes God would say nothing at all. If you go to the end of Genesis chapter 16, it remarks that Abraham is 86. The next verse in chapter 17 says, when Abraham was 99, God spoke to him. So that's 13 years of not a lot happening. So Abraham stepped out in faith, in obedience to God, seeing this bigger picture, but he was blind to the way it was going to happen. And I guess he must have wondered at times, yeah, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this to everybody else? Did I hear it wrong? And that does this describe, and Abraham is like the prototype of the life of faith. He pictures for us what it means. And often faith is called to work like that. God calls us to follow him, but he doesn't give us the detail. He might give you a particular vision, but actually he doesn't tell you everything about it. Actually, that's probably a good reason. If you think about it, would you go if you knew all the problems that were coming your way? If you look in Acts, Paul is there given a vision of what's going to happen. He's told he's going to Jerusalem and he's going to meet suffering. Now he's up for it. He's the Apostle Paul after all, but his friends aren't. His friends are terrified for him and they try to dissuade him. But I guess even Paul didn't know how it was going to happen. He gets to Jerusalem. He's spotted by some people from Ephesus. The world was small even then. And they think he's up to no good, so they stir a riot up, and a mob try to kill Paul. He's then rescued by the Roman garrison, who promptly arrest him, thinking that he's probably a source of trouble, and they not need to keep their eye on him. He spends 2 years in jail. He's not released, so he appeals to Caesar. As a Roman citizen, he may do that. So they ship him off to Rome, where he spends another 2 years under house arrest. Now, I think even the Apostle Paul didn't know it was going to happen like that. What these texts remind us is that we exercise faith daily because we're not in charge. It's God who is. He's in charge of the big vision, which you may or may not know. He's in charge of the daily steps because we don't know what the day holds. And so we place ourselves into his hands each day. There's a hymn you'll find in older hymn books. I don't think I've ever sung it actually. It's by Cardinal Newman. It's called Lead Kindly Light. And one of the verses has a profound statement, and it says, "The distant scene I do not ask to see, one step enough for me." Abraham knew something of the distant scene, but he still had to take the step each day. What might that one step be for us? Well, the steps that we take are not necessarily in fulfillment of some grand vision. The steps we take are to aim to grow in the knowledge, the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, so that you understand him more. What we need to know, first of all, is not so much his way for us, the direction of our lives, rather as his ways, what he is like and how he acts and how we can trust him and how his character is worthy of that trust. Because once we know him, of course, then we're able to trust him for each step or for the longer future. Because his love and his peace fill our hearts all the time. And then we're able to serve him where he's placed us, because we know that actually he is with us, he's guiding us. And then, of course, maybe, yes, step out in faith when the time comes. Abraham is called the man of faith because actually he exemplifies this aspect of faith. Yes, there was a big plan to his life, but actually it was the daily grind where he displayed that over the years. That's what God calls us to do as well. So aim to make that step today. Maybe you can't see some distant picture, but just make that step in grace and faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. And tomorrow, there's something that comes out of this. I want to talk about disappointment. I hope you won't be disappointed with that, but I hope to see you tomorrow.